through the figures representing KwaZulu-Natal. The Executive Council has engaged with the presentation. So I will allow the Premier to just talk us through the experience, the numbers, what they say, what they mean, and then Mr. Maluleke also will come in. Thank you very much. Those who have questions, let's ask the questions after the short briefing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kwala, and once more, good day, Mr. Maluleke and your team. We really appreciate this interaction. Members of the media, as you all are aware, that the Statistician General released census 2022 results last month, and KwaZulu-Natal officially received its results from the Stats SA this morning. The Statistician General, Mr. Maluleke, and his team presented the results to the Executive Council of KwaZulu-Natal. What is of interest is that the population and housing census is one of the largest projects in 10-year cycle of our country, including the elections every 5 years. Census provides an opportunity to obtain the data on key demographics indicators such as population size, composition, households and their living circumstances, geographical distribution, and other demographics. The latest census results show that South African population grew by from 51.7% to 62 million in 2022. It also shows that all the districts in KZN have shown the increase in terms of the population growth, with eThekwini still having the highest population count of 4.2 million, and Umgungundlovu second with 1.2 million. Women also still make up the bigger percentage than men, but also what of interest as well is the population of women-led household in KZN, which also indicates that the work that we need to do needs to be informed by these results that are coming out for us. During the presentation in the Executive Council, we engaged with the figures. Although we are positioning KwaZulu-Natal as a smart province, the reality is that there is still a long way to go in terms of the connectivity. Our province is largely rural, so the usage of 100% digital multimode options of data is still something that we are all working towards, and it was also presented to some of the challenges in our province. We are also pleased to hear that, amongst other things, that South African has moved fast with the electrification of the country. In 1996, the Western Cape had the highest access to electricity. And to date, as KZN, we are following with the national trajectory, as many of our municipalities, and we are doing very well in terms of electrification, which proves to the interventions that are being done by government in terms of the equitable share, the various grants that we received in terms of the electrification grants from the government. What is also encouraging is the number of households who've got access to piped water in their dwellings or inside of their yard. We're doing very well in terms of the statistics. There is also a lot of work that we still need to pay special attention to in terms of implementing the turnaround strategy on the issues of maintenance of our infrastructure, because what we would normally see is that we do a lot of investment on the infrastructure, but because of the lack of maintenance, we tend to regress in the moving with the numbers in terms of the access to those services. In the 12.4 million people in the province, We've got 10.5 million that are Black African, and followed by 1.1 million which are Indian Asian, followed by 183,000 which is classified as colored, as well as the whites, which makes up to 27,000 or more of that population. The biggest also population distribution is by age, which is between the ages of 10 to 14 and up, and to 30 to 35. And these are the numbers really that we do believe will help us in terms of our plans as government. How do we service our community, and where the services also still need to go. So in all senses, we are approaching a turning point in the management of the dwindling resources, which must address a growing, if not steady demand issues, including the negotiated wage hikes, the social wage, and even the unpredictability occasioned by the climate change. And with regards to the digitization of the census, this reminds us of the show march towards the digital world, in which the advent of fourth industrial revolution or fifth industrial revolution and the mainstreaming of the artificial intelligence it must be a reality to all of us. So both these are not far-fetched issues. They are introducing us to a massive a responsibility that we still have as the government of KwaZulu-Natal and this Executive Council, which needs to ponder on these issues in detail and continue on the basis of ensuring that these studies leads us to clarity in terms of our plans, decisive and visionary leadership that must take this province and our communities forward. So we do appreciate SG this results, and we really hope that we will also further interact with various stakeholders in our province with a view of ensuring that we all sing on the same hymn book in terms of adjusting our resources where we need to adjust and directing the resources where they need to be directed to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Premier. Mr. Maluleke, your response, please.
Just hold the mics.
Oh, sorry.
I don't want to tamper with your mics and they don't take all the sound. Let me thank the Premier indeed, and thank members of the media for joining us. One of the responsibilities of STSA is to uphold and explain our methods and make them easier to unpack and take issues forward. So the biggest issue that we're dealing with all over the provinces and indeed nationally has been the whole matter around the undercount. So if you look at every dwelling unit that we reached to, whether we found people in there or we didn't find people. But the issue of the undercount is that we just do not do it for the sake of doing it. We use a United Nations method that allows us to conduct a post-enumeration survey right after the field work of the main census. Now, once we have undertaken the post-enumeration survey, we compare form for form, record for record, until we are able to know how many people we have missed in terms of whether they are male or female, in terms of their age cohorts, whether they are rural or in the urban areas. And we then get the weights, what we call adjustment weights, which we use for adjusting the population according to the estimate of what it should be. So indeed, in every census, you will not reach out to everyone. Even if we didn't have COVID, even if we didn't have issues like unrest and floods, particularly here in KwaZulu-Natal, we would not have reached to everyone. But the post-enumeration survey since 1996 has been used to adjust the population accordingly. So as we come back and say, here we have presented the numbers to the Premier. Premier, we are presenting work to you. Our work is done, but in terms of engagement going forward with members of the public on their expectations on where we have made progress or where there is lack of progress and where we need to make more progress as a nation is beyond the remits of StatsSA. One of the things that we would like to request from members of society is to open your doors more so that we can reach out, because we still have sample surveys to conduct. In the census, we had about 1.2 million households that flatly refused to be enumerated. Of course, we have made up for that in our estimate, final estimate. But having said that, we would expect a lot more cooperation with members of the public, because sample surveys require us to hold more steadily and work together to keep the snapshot of the nation clear all the time. It's not only from the side of government that we need these numbers. Members of the public need these numbers to engage with those that they elect into public office. And of course, the academia need this information. Students in their research, future generations will need these numbers. So it's what we do now that will make a difference in the future for our children. I thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. The Premier needs to go back to the Executive Council meeting inside, so we can just take one or two, really, if there are any questions. Yes, you can just shoot straight. Is there another one? So that you can just take one round, yes, ma'am. And then that will be it. You can just tell us the media house you're from and your name, and then we can quickly run.
All right, KZN Provincial. My focus is on Handover and eThekwini as they are the highest and the second highest. Is there anything that is worrying or that was a challenge in those two places, eThekwini and Handover, maybe in the processes of counting, or was there any of the stats that were alarming? So for example, the number of kids that are in school that should be in school, as an example. The 2.2 million growth in KZN, are you able to tell us what we can attribute it to? Is it migration? Is it babies being born? What is the contributing factor to that growth? Okay, I think you covered the third one, but if you can expand, I would appreciate that. When you're saying that there are households that refuse to be counted, but again, you have your own systems of rectifying that, and that doesn't only affect government. So maybe you can expand on that. I think the Premier can take this question as well. When households are not properly counted, how does it affect service delivery? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Really, it's just a request for an SSU on the Premier.
Okay, thank you. We'll do that. So the first three are to the Statistician General and then the Premier. Thank you.
Well, I will start with the issue of the undercount, including those people that refuse to be counted. What we do is that we conduct a post-enumeration survey right after the census fieldwork, but we keep the two teams independent. So the post-enumeration survey may know where all the census people have gone, but the census people must never know where the post-enumeration team will go, because if they know, they will focus a lot more of their work in terms of where they want glaring undercounts not to show. Once that is done, even the teams, we hire a separate team for the post-enumeration survey. 174,000 households were taken in the post-enumeration survey, and all forms came back. It's a high sample count. If you look at our regular sample sizes nationally for issues that relate to our quarterly labor force survey or general household survey, we take 30,000 households. So 174,000 households were quite immense. And now, having taken them, we compare form for form, record for record, and you may go to a household where one person has used different names. We have reconciliation visits. Once we know how many people we have missed in terms of age cohort, sex, male, female, in terms of rural and not rural, we compute the weights which we use for adjusting for the final count. After that, we add the number of people that are homeless. So those ones are not included in the undercount because they are not in households. People in institutions, people in prisons, or people that are in other institutions, be they hospitals, people that come from lists that come from hotels. Because as of the night of the 2nd of February 2022, we want to know who were people that were inside the borders of South Africa. So the whole issue of whether you are a local or you are documented or not, you are a citizen doesn't matter. We count everyone who finds themselves within the borders of South Africa. In terms of glaring issues, there is nothing that surprised the Statistician General. The Statistician General is never surprised because if we were to be surprised or have emotional attachment to numbers, certain numbers, we would start holding those that we like and release them the most, and those that we don't like and we don't release them. So what we do is that every number to us counts. So in Gungundlov or in eThekwini, there is nothing much that has surprised us. Of course, we need to say that eThekwini remains the most populous district or metro in KwaZulu-Natal, followed by Mgungundlo. But that doesn't surprise us because that position they may hold and they may not hold in future, depending on the movement of populations. One of the things we know, and of course this is a point you raise, is that is the population in KwaZulu-Natal driven largely by migrants or in terms of the people that are born here. Rural provinces generally have higher levels of fertility. Fertility is the number of children, live births born of a woman in a lifetime. The Eastern Cape and Limpopo are actually leading, followed by KwaZulu-Natal in fertility. So one of the things we can say is that this is attributed to the number of children that are born here. This is opposed to what we see in Gauteng, where 50% of the people coming from outside South Africa choose Gauteng as their destination. And Gauteng has a lower fertility. Actually, it's below replacement because it has about less than 2 children born of a woman, live births of a woman in her lifetime. So we can safely say that the population of KwaZulu-Natal grows out of people that are born here. Of course, there are people who come from other provinces and people who come from outside South Africa, but they don't trump the number of children born here. Premier raises a matter as we were talking that as the population increases, she does know that the number of school-going children are the highest in the country. This is a point that we have been seeing even in our sample surveys. The number of school-going children in this province are higher than any other province. And of course, there are other issues in terms of access to medical facilities, medical aids and the like. In our sample surveys, 17% nationally accesses medical aid in the country. But of course, in terms of the first port of call, people choose hospitals as the first port of call. And this is a matter that Premier and the MECs here will need to deal with in terms of taking the process forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maluleke. Premier, as we wrap up.
Yeah, yeah, it is a challenge when people refuse to be counted because it does actually impact on service delivery. As you would know that the numbers of communities that we have vis-a-vis what gets allocated eventually from the fiscus it doesn't get to tally because we do not have those numbers in our books or in our population register. So that is why it's always important that people are encouraged, that they do get counted, and we do everything in our power to ensure that everybody gets counted. But also not just for the budget or service delivery, but so that we can plan better. You know, we should be able to see whether we have enough transport, whether we have enough clinics, whether we have enough schools, whether we have enough anything that we need for our communities. And you can only plan when you know what are you planning for and who you are planning for. For instance, if the statistics tells us that we've got the majority of people are women, and the majority of those women are women that are heading the households. So it must tell us then that whatever that we are planning, we should be planning for that scenario that says you've got women that are leading families, and what are the needs of those people that are being led by women, and what becomes either social issues related to those matters. And all those issues would then help us to plan and to focus our plans so that we can respond to the needs of the communities that we are serving.
Thank you very much, Professor Itindela Zulu. Do you have a follow-up question?
Just one
who is it directed to?
To the Premier.
Okay.
Yes, the Premier. With each district, King showed that 52.3% of kids between the ages of 0 and 4 are not attaining early childhood development, which is obviously larger than the national average of 39.8. So moving forward in the upcoming year, what special focus plan do you have for that? Because it's quite an alarming number.
Now, it is a concerning number. One of the problems that we've experienced ourselves last week during our Operation Sukumasake, actually, I visited one youth center, and I was actually surprised. You'll see one of the videos, and I was actually shouting at those people as to why so many kids were sitting in that youth center. Kids' ages from like 4 to 6, 7, 8. They were not at school. They were just sitting in that youth center and being taught craft. And one of the problems was that they do not have documentation. The larger population in the north, you're getting more and more kids that do not have either birth certificates, or their parents do not have IDs, because one of the challenges we are facing is the undocumented citizens. As you would know, that we are sharing borders with Swaziland, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and those then tend to find expression in such problems that we then get to experience. Same you would see in the housing development, that as much as a government has built so many housing, or we have so many housing projects, but if you look at the numbers that, particularly in the north, you'll see that you might have a large number of people that are not in the traditional dwelling because they do not qualify, because again, they do not have documentation that enables them to qualify for those houses. So it is posing more and more of a problem for us. It even includes kids that are in schools that are not accounted for, because you would have a large number of kids in KZN that are in schools, but they are not counted in those schools because they don't have documents. And even in the allocation of our education, equitable share, we do not get monies for those kids because they're not in our database, because we do not have IDs nor documents for them. So it is a challenge that we need to see how we deal with it moving forward.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, thank you very much. Malulek, you can send move. Unfortunately, we can't do so much here. But it will be prolonged. Thank you very much.
Yes, anytime. Just some. Yes, we did, as I said,